Hi, my name is Benny Hill from Toxic Games, and you're listening to the Party Chat podcast.
Xbox on.
Game on, baby! Wow!
Don't make a girl a promise you can't keep.
Let's do this.
Hello and welcome to the Party Chat podcast, the official podcast of the Xbox One subreddit. I'm your host, the Podfather, Ross Miller, and I'm joined by our MV Cheeze. It's Rhys.
Hello.
And the queen of cosplay, it's Carina.
Hey guys. So cringy.
I was like,
Yeah, it gets worse. I don't know. It just gets worse every week.
It was a thing until we made it a thing. You know, it was all right, and then we made it a thing.
And now it's just worse.
Failed.
I'm like, hi.
But at least everyone has a nickname now.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
I'm so happy. Yeah. No one refers to me as the Podfather, though. Slightly disappoints me.
Yet.
Yeah, that's because
Yet.
you've only had it
Yet.
like a week. Give it
You
time.
haven't even changed your gamer tag yet.
No, and I keep on forgetting to do that.
Yeah, it's important, man.
Yeah. By the time this airs, then it will be changed.
Yes, the slight spoiler of what we're going to talk about today, but while I was walking around in Seattle, absolutely everyone referred to me by my gamer tag.
Oh.
That's a good thing, though.
Yeah. But I'll talk about that more later on, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I suppose that's a good point just to get straight into what we've been playing and doing this week. And as Rhys mentioned there, he was in Seattle, so I'm going to turn to you first of all.
I guess I'll start off with what I've been playing because that's a little bit less exciting. But I've been playing Sea of Thieves in split screen using Game Pass and Play Anywhere, which is just absolutely fantastic. And I've been having a really good time. The last time I played it, like 2 days ago, we chased down a galleon and not a galleon. We chased down a sloop in a galleon. And we very, very slowly caught up to him because the galleon's faster if you run into the wind. And he was run with the wind, I should say. And he was doing that, unfortunately. And he was a Scottish guy, Ross.
Oh,
And
he
jumped up onto the back of the sloop and started screeching obscenities at us, insisting that we go away, and using all manner of colourful Scottish language. And then we boarded his ship, and it turned out he must have been doing one of those timed missions for the what are they? The people where you had to catch the chickens and stuff, the trading company. And he was on his way back with like a ship full of chickens and pigs and snakes. And then we killed him and we took his chickens and snakes and pigs and then we sunk his ship. And then as we sailed to the outpost, he had respawned at that outpost and we stole his ship again and he just swam after us, just screeching as many curse words as you can imagine before he logged out. So I think we might have actually cost Rare a player there. Sorry about that. Sorry, it's just those moments in Sea of Thieves when it's like,
But if you ever do that to a fellow Scotsman again, I'm going to come to Finland and kick you squarely in the ass.
I'll keep that in mind. I'll stick to Spaniards.
Okay.
And I also played today, actually, 2 games that were on my backlog for a very long time, and I had a couple of hours free, and I thought I'd try them. One of them was Cluster Truck. Great title. Have any of you played that?
Cluster Truck.
Yes.
No, but it sounds. I was about to say the title's quite an interesting title.
Yeah, it's in Games Pass, and it is a very, very simple little game. I believe it was actually made originally in a game jam. And it's just like a little physics-based sort of action platformer where you have to get from the beginning of the level to the end, but you can't touch the ground. You can only like walk on the tops of these trucks, these lorries that are like speeding along a course and crashing and exploding and driving over things, and you have to jump between them. and it's pretty epic. My hands were probably sweatier than they've ever been while I was playing that game today. I liked it. I don't know how long it would keep my attention longer than the half an hour I played it, but it's good. How far have you played it, Ross?
Well, I finished the main stories well, not the story, there isn't a story, but I finished the sort of campaign levels, but it was on PC, it was part of a Humble Bundle a while ago, so I actually played right through that in PC, and my son really likes Cluster Truck, so I picked it up, so I picked it up for him, and started playing through an Xbox, but the thing that's lacking for me in Xbox about Cluster Truck is mods. And custom levels.
Oh yeah, that would suck.
Well, on PC, they've got like Wipeout. If anyone knows what Wipeout is, it's one of those stupid programs where you have to make your way across an obstacle course, but there's like versions of that in the game where you have to make yourself across the American Ninja one, or Ninja Warrior, whatever you want to call it. There's all these amazing custom maps essentially, and they don't make it into the Xbox version, so it sort of put me off replaying through all the story levels or the mission levels again, essentially, just because I was having so much fun with doing them in PC. But maybe that's something they might add, or maybe it's there and I just didn't see it.
I didn't see it, but and I also tried it was the Games with Gold a few months ago, and that's Shadow Warrior. Have you guys played that?
If you're in Germany, you haven't played it, but yeah.
That game is beautiful, especially on the X. Like, it looks really, really good. Oh yeah. I'm going to post some screenshots on Twitter. They'll be up by the time this podcast goes out. But it's really pretty, and it's seriously violent. But it's sort of like an old school throwback. For those who don't know, Shadow Warrior was a game that came out in the 90s, just after Duke Nukem 3D. I believe it was like 96 or 97. No, 96 was Duke, so maybe it was like 97 or 98. And it was built on the Duke Nukem 3D engine, which is called Build. And it was a really sort of grossly offensive, dark humor sort of game. And this is sort of like a reboot, reimagining of it. And it still keeps the offensive and like sort of tongue-in-cheek humor. And it's a real sort of throwback to those old school shooters where you circle strafe and use abilities and fight with a sword or with machine guns. And it's actually really fun. I'm sad I put off playing it for so long, and it's seriously violent.
I might have to give that a go.
Yeah,
I might have to give that a go.
The developers actually have such a good sense of humor that they created, I think they even released it for free, but they created a little mini game in the same engine, and they called it Shadow Warrior Viscera Cleanup Crew or something similar. And you star in the game as a janitor who has to turn up, like, working for the evil corporation that the main character Lo Wang is fighting against. And you turn up after Lo Wang has been through and murdered everything in the main game. And so there's like all these corpses and gore like everywhere. And your job is to like pick up all the pieces of people and like put them into garbage bins and then mop up all the blood on the floor and the walls. And it's really stupid, but it's really funny.
I take it that's not an Xbox.
I think it is, actually.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Funny little thing when you mentioned the build engine that this was originally made in, but a funny little fact. Do you know it couldn't do reflections?
Couldn't do reflections.
There's mirrors in Duke Nukem, for example, and every time they did that, they had to mirror the room that you were standing in, and actually put another character model in to mimic what you were doing, because they couldn't actually just have a glass reflection. They had to build a separate room to actually show you what looked like a mirror. But if you put a no-clip command in, you could actually walk through and see like this mirror image of the room behind it.
Yeah. Oh, I know there was a lot of tricks they employed to make, like, for example, rooms on top of rooms and all kinds of stuff. It was they made the best with what they had. So yeah, that was really good, and that's what I've been playing this week. And I suppose you guys all want to hear about my trip to Seattle.
Not really.
No?
So anyway, Carina.
Yeah, go.
Rhys You are an MVP. You did attend the MVP Summit in Seattle for the last week, so tell us all about it. Was it good?
Okay, so flying all the way to Seattle was not very good. But getting there, actually, you know what's funny? I left Finland and I flew, the 10 hour, not 10 hours, more like 20 hours it took with the transfer. When I landed in Seattle, I looked out the window of the plane and was like, have I gone anywhere? Like, the scenery of Seattle is incredibly similar to the scenery of Helsinki with the grey sky and the pine trees everywhere. But, so we spent a whole week, me and a few of the other people who have been awarded the MVP award, Anyway, in the past, and basically we had a brutal schedule of 7:30 a.m. till 9 p.m. every single day. And we had most of it was set in like a really cool studio that they have there. And a lot of it is super duper top secret. And I'm not allowed to talk about it, unfortunately, but there is some cool stuff I can tell you. Like, for example, we got to meet Phil Spencer and he had a really nice chat with us, a real open chat where he just talked with us. And like we could ask him anything we wanted and he just answered really frankly. And he was just really cool guy, and we got a photo op, and that was nice. I met a whole bunch of cool people from Microsoft, people we've had on the podcast before, like the support team, like Josh Stein. I was actually rooming with Green Skull, and he's been on the podcast as well. There's a surprisingly large amount of people asking me to take pictures of Green Skull while he sleeps. I'm not sure what the deal is with that.
Right, okay, so to be honest with you, that's all I really wanted to get to. So what's it like sharing a room with Green Skull? It must be amazing. Does he smell like I would expect him would?
He smells very nice.
Does he?
Yes, and he's very high energy. So like, I was in the room and he just like burst into the door and he'd be like, "Hey man, what's up? Oh, we're gonna do this thing. Okay, bye." And he'd be out the door. Really sort of high energy, really funny guy. I have no idea where it all comes from. He never seems to be tired or anything. So yeah, really amazing to share a room with him. One of the really cool things actually I can talk about that we got to do is we got a tour of the Microsoft Inclusive Text Lab. And when you hear inclusive, it doesn't mean like, race or like male to female sort of, inclusive, but, actually including people who have like disabilities, who have trouble gaming, like maybe someone's missing an arm or they're paralyzed and they can only move their fingers and their chin. And, you've seen on Reddit or wherever somewhere, I'm sure, one of these amazing stories of these amazing people, like with some sort of crazy bootleg system that they've designed themselves. Maybe they've pulled apart an Xbox controller and sort of rewired the thing. And basically, a lot of them reached out to Microsoft and said that, because Microsoft has these algorithms that detect cheating, right? So they detect modified controllers. And so when they plug these into the system, the Xbox goes, you be cheating, son, and it issues a ban. So they were like, can we not get banned for this? And Microsoft was like, we can go one better. And so they built this amazing lab. I say lab, it sounds like a laboratory. I don't know why they called it that. It's more like a fun room. And in there, they develop all kinds of crazy controllers and all these different ways you can game with like the VR and just stuff like that, like playing without people who play with only sound, like blind people who can game. And they let us even like try out the stuff, like, this is what it's like to play when you can only move your knuckles and your tongue, and it's just like, how do these people, how do they do that? Like, it's inhuman. So that was really cool. And I was, glad to be able to take pictures of that and share that with everybody. I took some pictures on Twitter, but other people sort of talked about it a bit more than I did. What else did we do? We went and played laser tag. We went bowling. Went for a tour of the 343 Halo Museum. And the guys from 343 came over and talked to us about Halo and stuff, but that's all secret. There's so many cool things that happened that I can't tell you about, which is really frustrating. But I have to say that a surprising amount of people recognized me. It's got to be the hair, but people who recognized me as delicious cheese. They didn't recognize me as me. So I was walking down any given hallway in Microsoft, and some dude would be like, "Hey, yo, it's delicious cheese. What up, man? Hey!" And I'd be like, "What?" so yeah, that was an experience, I have to say.
Yeah, I can imagine getting recognised for being cheese is a strange scenario.
Yeah, and the other MVPs didn't know me, so they were just referring to me by my gamer tag, and everybody, like, we got so much swag. Like, okay, Green Skull legit bought a new suitcase just to fit it. All this stuff. Yeah, he was walking around with like 4 backpacks. So we got all this amazing swag, and all of it was customized. Well, not all of it, most of it. So I've got like a hoodie with my name, with my gamer tag printed on it, Delicious Cheese.
Nice.
And I've got a shirt with my gamer tag printed on it, and a couple other things like that. And we got the best thing we got were these epic controllers. They're not, Design Lab controllers, but they're like an actual like OEM with a stamped sort of, logo of the MVP crew on the controller itself. It's really nice. And it's got the rubberized grips and everything.
Fantastic. You'll be using that a lot then, or are you going to frame it?
It's all I've been using, actually. It's because before that it was just my Elite, obviously, but I've been using it because I sort of have to, because it's it's the MVP controller, boy. It's mine. And there's only like 30 of them ever made. We gave one to Phil. He was really happy with that, actually. And I just want to say a quick shout out to Malik, who organized it. And Malik's actually going to be on the podcast probably this month, if I can corral him into it. He's the head of the MVP program, and he also does like the community stuff for This Week on Xbox and a few other things. So big shout out to him. Thanks so much for organizing this. And actually, one last thing, and that sort of ties into what I'm saying. We had one night, Microsoft threw a party for us in like the hallway of one of their buildings, as everyone who was finishing work was coming down and had to walk through this hallway. And we had all these Xboxes set up, and we had a huge projector screen playing Rocket League and also playing Fusion Frenzy. And next to each set of Xboxes that were playing different games, all party games, everything from Overcooked to the new Dragon Ball Z to Forza, there's like a stack of these cool t-shirts about the MVP game night. They were like white. And basically, if you played, everyone got one. Like any staff member who turned up that night could have a t-shirt. And because it was white, and there was like pens everywhere. If you played with an MVP, because on the back it says, "I played against." And then all the MVPs, basically, you're supposed to like collect signatures. So we had to sign everybody's shirt, and we all together signed one for Malik just to thank him. But that was amazing. Wow. Actually, there was Green Skull went and rounded up Sharon Loftus and made her play him in Fusion Frenzy for like half an hour on the big projector screen. It was really fun. We must have eaten like 100 pizzas or more. There was so many boxes of pizzas, it was like a mountain. So yeah, it was a good time. Really good time.
Well,
Sounds
I'm glad
fun.
to hear our MV Cheese had a good time.
Yeah.
But Carina, what have you been playing?
The same games. No, actually, I have played something new for a change. I binge played, like, literally, I've not binge played a game in so long, but I binge played the new Far Cry, which I think you've played as well, Ross, haven't you?
Yes,
have you played it, Rhys?
Everybody has been playing Far Cry but me. Like,
it's so good.
It came out while I was at the summit, and it was all the guys were talking about, like, oh, can't wait to play me some Far Cry 5. And every time I'd pop open my phone, it was like, Far Cry 5, boy! And so, yeah, I think I'm the only one who hasn't yet.
Well, put it this way. I've never found a game where you can have a bear as a companion called Cheeseburger, and you can javel throw shovels at people's heads. That's
Okay.
Far Cry in a nutshell. Well, hallucinating, because, there's a big, basically, when you play Far Cry, there's 3 regions. So you've got Faith, you've got Jacob, and you've got John, I think that's right. And, I'm a big fan of Faith regions, definitely my favourite. And, yeah, hers is all about this hallucinating drug called Bliss. So if you're playing certain missions and you go through fields of this Bliss, you're like, your screens go in, and it's pretty funny.
That's actually like a Far Cry trope. every Far Cry game since Far Cry 3 has had a part where you get shot full of drugs and hallucinate for a while.
Yeah, there's that, but it's a whole region, which is pretty funny. Saying that though, I've not played any of the old Far Cry's. I played Far Cry 4, but I haven't played Primal, and I haven't played the others. I know of them and I've seen them, but I've not played them. And so for me to play Far Cry 5 was quite interesting. But because I bought it whilst I was back up north with my parents, it was my mum's game, not mine. So I had to binge play it and try and finish it. And I'd never enjoyed a game and kind of been addicted to a game in so long. I literally spent, since its release, I think I had 2.5 days to finish it in, and I managed to get 3/4 of the game done. And I nearly finished the 3rd region, which then meant I got to face the father. But unfortunately I didn't get to finish it, so that'll be definitely, when I go back home, that'll be what I'm doing. But the game itself's really, it's open world, you can kind of choose your own pathway, the best bit's the companions. Like, honestly, I had Peaches the cougar, even though people wanted me to call it Freddy. Little joke there. It's like the worst joke ever.
Were you streaming?
Yes. Yeah. So
I'll have to watch the VODs.
As I said, they want me to call it Freddy, as in Freddy Cougar. The cheeseburger, the bear companion, and Boomer.
Good name.
Exactly, he does want a bear called Cheeseburger. But no, the game is really, really good, and like I say, you can kind of do your own thing. The only problem is there is a few glitches. There was one where, unfortunately, I couldn't finish a mission because it was just glitched out, because I think I died as the mission was being completed, so it completely bugged it out, so I'm unable to complete it. But apart from that, it's a really good game. I mean, I definitely advise people to get on and play it. I've not tried the arcade mode, and I've heard PUBG maps have been made on the arcade mode, on the map creator.
Dust 2.
Yeah, I've heard
Dust 2 is on there, yeah.
Dust 2's on there.
There's so many maps. You've got Nuketown.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one.
I've been doing a wee bit of that.
If my focus wasn't to basically blitz through the game, I definitely would have given the arcade mode a look. I've heard it's very interesting. Apparently it's one of the most, focused parts of every Far Cry game. Like I say, I haven't played the other ones, but no, Far Cry 5 was definitely a good game to play. So I definitely recommend it if anyone was thinking of getting it. Just try it out. Just try it out and have fun with it. I really enjoyed the storyline. I didn't like Jacob's. Now, I did the Order of Faith, Jacob's, and then I was on to John's. I mean, that's spoiling it too much. Faith is about drugs, Jacob's is about violence, and I think John's, I don't know, but I got to fly around in a plane, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, no, I think Faith is definitely my favourite. I always go, do Faith story, because hers is such a good storyline. Especially the end. I don't want to spoil too much, but the ending's quite very interesting. Very interesting to say the least. But it's better than Jacob's. I wasn't a big fan of Jacob's ending. But yeah, what about you, Ross? Because you said you played. I don't know how much you've done.
Yeah. Just to cut in before you start, did you guys play single player or multiplayer? Because I know it's co-op.
The arcade is multiplayer.
Oh, it's the arcade that's multiplayer.
No, you can play campaign multiplayer.
Yeah.
It's not as good, though. Like, there's no point to it. Like, I mean, me and Bob played it just because we wanted to fly around. I don't think he'd been around in a plane yet, and I just unlocked one, so I was like, jump in, finish this mission with me, and whatever else. I mean, it's good in terms of you've got someone to help you do the missions, but I don't think it's necessary. I wouldn't buy the game on the terms of co-op. I'd buy it on terms of play the campaign solo, and then, okay, maybe the arcade's better, because obviously by the sounds of things, the arcade's multiplayer, but in terms of the campaign, like, multiplayer doesn't make a difference.
Okay.
Yeah, like, I'll jump in. I've been playing Far Cry 5 as well, not to the extent of what Carina did. For some reason, when I get Far Cry 5 or Far Cry games, I ignore the story completely at the beginning and just go around and kill things and liberate outposts and just do what I want to do. So I haven't touched too much on the story. But first of all, I just want to point out this is one of the most stunning games I have ever played in my life.
Oh, it's so pretty. We were saying PUBG should be, if PUBG was like Far Cry, it'd be amazing. Absolutely amazing.
It would be amazing. Like, we talk about water and Sea of Thieves, so water in this is stunning. The entire area that you're in, everything seems as if it's alive, essentially. There's animals running about, there is people, although all the character models are pretty much the same person.
Yeah.
Someone pointed that out in Reddit, the fact that they spent all this time actually, making this game and making everything look so different, but they've got about 20 character models. So
wait.
you can actually get 3 guys that look exactly the same.
Ross, does it look better than Ubisoft's last big, beautiful game, Assassin's Creed Origins?
Oh,
It's hard because it's so different.
that's a good comparison.
Okay, because they're both open world, and because what you're describing, Assassin's Creed looks stunning and it feels alive. There's animals, there's wildlife, there's people, so it's not quite the same then.
It's different, I think, just because of perspective of being first person. You notice more. You don't really look down sights, do you? I know you've got the ego that you can put up and things. It just feels different. I personally prefer Far Cry.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense where I think I'll tell you what the difference was as well, is I've not had my X for that long. So to see this in its native 4K on Xbox One X, it blew my mind. It actually blew my mind how good it looks.
Does it have HDR?
And it does. I was not hyped for this game at all because Far Cry 4 was good. I 100% done everything, including the DLC in Far Cry 4 was good. Everyone knows that Far Cry 3 was good. But I just felt I've been suffering from a bit of open world fatigue. I just wasn't that psyched for this. But when I actually played it, I was so glad that I picked this game up. It is so good. One of the best opening sequences, the first 30 minutes of that game are amazing. I mean, amazing. Within the first 30 minutes, you're involved in a helicopter crash, a plane chase, an arrest of the father. You're seeing people getting killed. There's a fire. There's just everything goes on. You're non-stop for the first 30 minutes. And then after that finishes, it just goes, go. Here's a giant open world. Go and do what you want to do. It just works so well for a game of this sort. And I'm going to be playing this game for months. I have dipped into the arcade mode. Now, the arcade mode, mainly what I've been doing is multiplayer games, so team deathmatch, even dodgeball, would you believe is a mode? But literally it's like you throw throwing knives instead of dodgeballs. What I will say is you sort of have to play the single player game sometimes before jumping into the arcade, because a lot of the standard mode types allow your perks. So the perks that you unlock in the single player are carried over to multiplayer, like sneak faster or sneak more quietly or run fast, all those types of perks actually carry over to the multiplayer. So you get different levels in there, and it actually gives you an increase to play through the first player game or the one player game before going into the multiplayer. But the multiplayer's really solid, and it's got an amazing map editor, as we mentioned earlier on. Some of the stuff that you can do in that is utterly fantastic. Some of the maps you can make, it's very versatile. And I'm looking forward to spending some time not only in single player but multiplayer as well. The thing that put me off playing co-op in the single player essentially game is that your progress does not carry for the second player.
Oh.
So if you liberate an outpost or you do a mission, the second player, although they'll gain their experience, weapons, ammo, money, they do not actually progress the storyline with that. And for me, if it just allow you to play through the game as a co-op where you both progress through, then that would be fantastic. But unfortunately, it's not there. And that really lets it down. That really lets it down, because liberating an outpost with someone in the base while someone is sniping is a brilliant thing. It's brilliant fun. It's great fun. But when you know that you've got to go back to your single player game and liberate that outpost again, you sort of think, nah, I can't be bothered.
Yeah. It's not on PC, is it? Or is it?
I believe this is on PC.
Is it Play Anywhere?
No, it's certainly not Play Anywhere.
No, I wish it was.
Ubisoft doesn't do that. Yeah, because that's exactly what I would run out and buy that right now and indulge in some split screen, quote unquote. Yeah. That's becoming my new thing now. I'm legit thinking about games completely differently ever since I started doing that in Sea of Thieves. Just how I can, all these games that were previously co-op only online, I can now play without buying a second copy on my PC. It's like a total game changer.
No, I've seen you've been doing that on Twitter, and it does look pretty cool. It does look pretty cool. Question, if you game share, that won't work, will it?
If you're not on the home, like, basically it has to be your home console that has the game. So
yeah, that's my issue.
Yeah, see, for those who actually are listening and want to know, because I actually explained this to Microsoft, hopefully they don't patch it out, but they were fascinated by this workaround. Sorry, if they do, guys, sorry, you can blame me. But, so what you do is just say, like, my gamer tag is Delicious Cheeze, and I own the game on my home Xbox. And on that same Xbox, my friend came around and she downloaded her profile onto my Xbox, like you can do, anywhere, right? So
is that what the kids are calling it nowadays?
What?
Oh no, you mean literally downloaded it onto the pro? Oh, right, sorry. Okay.
What? You download your profile. Oh, I see what you're trying to say. Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, Ross. Yeah. Nice one. Let's keep it PG-13. So, okay. Yeah, she downloads a profile onto my Xbox, and then I open up the Windows 10 store on my PC, log in with the same Xbox account or Windows account, Windows Live, install Sea of Thieves on my computer, and basically I just open up Sea of Thieves on my computer playing as Delicious Cheeze, and she opens up Sea of Thieves on my Xbox playing as her account, and then we just play multiplayer. And it works. And that, I haven't paid for Sea of Thieves. I got Games Pass. So I get 2 copies of the game and get to play quote unquote local multiplayer for nothing. It's amazing.
That is a cool workaround. I look forward to when Microsoft patch that out because it's your fault.
Yeah, my bad. Sorry, guys.
Another thing I want to talk about is I've been actually playing a bunch of other games recently, and the reason for that is we, as the Party Chat podcast, are doing an April gamer score challenge.
Are you padding your gamer score, you son of a bitch?
Oh, I've not even had a chance
I'm only
yet.
85 ahead of you.
Yeah, but I've not even gotten a single achievement yet.
Are you sure you're ahead of me, Ross?
Oh.
You might want to look again, because I was playing the Xbox just a few minutes before you came on the podcast.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll look forward to padding myself later.
Oh, come on.
Basically what we're saying is that on Twitter, I put out who do you think would win in a Gamerscore challenge? And of course, the sensible choice was 35% of the vote went to me. So, on Twitter, people think that I'm going to finish the month of April with the highest gamer score between us. But we're going to open that up to you as well, the listener. We want to know how much gamer score you can gain in April. And we're going to want you to contact us on Twitter at the end of the month at PartyChatPod with who's got the highest. And we might see if we've even got a little prize lying about. But everyone, tweet out Team Ross. Hashtag Team Ross.
No.
True achievements is on my side.
Team Cheeze is the real side. No, you're cheating, Ross. This is,
No.
We're gonna have the hashtag not my pirate legend thing all over again.
No. Basically, I'm going to use this to play some amazing idea Xbox titles that I've not had a chance to play, and it gives me a good reason to read through them. I'll be going to True Achievements, I'll be watching their guides, their video guides, and reading through them to make sure I get that 1000G on each of the game, and I'm looking forward to playing all these great games and whipping all your asses.
It doesn't count if you pad.
When you're saying padding, I'm not looking for easy games for Gamerscore. I'm just looking at how to get the achievements in the game.
Okay. Because if you're buying those €2 games that you can get 1000G in 10 minutes, then
no.
Yes.
If I wanted to do that, I'd just go back and play Black and White Bushido.
Oh yeah, that's right. Actually, I'm going to be playing Black and White Bushido tomorrow. I have some friends coming over.
That's 1000G right there. But anyway, talking about great ID Xbox games, let's find out what our ID Xbox Game of the Week is. So Rhys, surprise, surprise, it's another choice from you.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's be honest, the game releases in the last 2 weeks for the IDD Xbox team haven't been stellar. There's only been a very, very small amount. So we had to sort of pick from the last couple months, and we thought that we just so happened to have a couple of Nine Parchment codes lying around, and I thought maybe we could spread the love, and I've already been talking about it quite a bit. So I saw you, Ross, were playing it.
Yes.
And just for anyone who's not familiar, I'll just describe the game. It is a top-down sort of old-school twin-stick shooter, a bit like, Robotron or Smash TV, or for you young'uns, Geometry Wars. It's very different in that it's beautiful. It is absolutely stunning to look at, and it's focused more on like sort of fantasy and magic. Very Harry Potter almost, I would say. So Ross, let's hear your opinion of the game.
Yeah, well, I like these type of games. I even go back to Diablo if you want. You know, you can see that sort of isometric style view. But as you mentioned, this is a stunning looking game. The effort that they put into the backgrounds and the areas of which you're walking through are amazing. Like the game looks absolutely stunning.
4K HDR. It's like the most beautiful and colourful game I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. Well, initial thoughts, 2 hours in, okay, I really, really like it. I hate the initial character that you're given. I absolutely detest the initial character you're given, but that's okay because you can unlock more very, very quickly. When Rhys says about the magic system, you start off and you have a broom. That's what you use as a wand, which is quite interesting. But you cast magic and it all has different colours, like blue for ice, red for fire, purple for, I don't know, purple is spiritual
Death.
Or something like that. Yeah. And then you get electric and things like that. Your enemy types spawn in and they are of a same type, essentially. So if you're fighting a fire enemy and you use a fire magic against them, they're not going to receive any damage at all. You have to think about ice on fire and electricity on water-based ones because the electricity spreads through water and things like that. And playing through it, so I do feel as if this game is built to be played in a group.
Oh yeah, it's really hard. Don't let the cutesy graphics fool you. This game is tough as nails, and you really need at least 2 and preferably a party of 4 to really get through it. Especially because the classes, they synergize. So for example, playing through with 2 of you, you can have one guy. The default character is that little dude, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
Clementine or something.
Yeah.
Clarence. I can't remember.
Yeah, whatever. But actually, he's actually who I'm playing as because he's really good at DPS, really good at damage, but he's hopeless at everything else. And the person I'm playing with was playing the healer. So you can heal one another. And actually, you have different kinds of attacks in the game. You've got your pew 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 sort of attacks where you shoot your magic little bullets, right? But you also have beams, and you can shoot like a beam, and they're harder to use because you have to hold them onto an enemy. But if you combine beams, you can cross the streams, Ghostbusters style, and shoot. Like when the beams connect, they become solid, and you can actually like bend them and curve them around things if you're both good enough. And you can combine the 2 energies into one, and you can't do that with just one of you.
Well, it was interesting as well because when you do a fire and ice together, it turns into water.
Yeah.
You know, the spray then becomes water when you combine the 2. Mm-hmm. The game is really, really smart. And it is really fun. It does have a bit of a grind to it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, to progress, you do feel as if you are grinding a little bit. But in the first few, 2, 3, or I think it's 2.5 hours I think I've done, I'm really, really enjoying it. And I'm looking forward to going back to it. But, Far Cry 5.
Yeah.
But, but, it is a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward, like Rhys called this out beforehand when he was playing Monster Hunter. My gamer tag is, by tonight, our Podfather. And if anyone wants to jump on and play Nine Parchments with me, please do, because I could use a squad for playing in this, if I'm totally honest. Because I think that is what this game is designed for, is having your different classes all working together to take on the foes. But overall, and in all the indie games of the week, this has been my favourite.
Oh, nice.
This has easily been my favourite.
Well, just as a warning, Ross, friendly fire is on and it cannot be disabled.
Oh, no.
I seen in the settings, you can...
That one, Emil.
You can reverse it so that if you friendly fire someone else, you take the damage.
Ouch. Well, also fair, but yeah. I mean, it changes the way you play because you have to sort of think about the positioning of yourself and your friends. But it's a hard game. It looks like it would be really easy, but it's not.
Yeah. It's really not. Actually, I was streaming it earlier and people were sort of like, this doesn't look great. And then when you get into the tactics of it, I forgot about Dash.
Oh no.
Or Blink,
how?
I think it's called. I don't know.
You need it, man.
Well, especially playing solo, because there's a few times I've been caught in a corner and I have just been obliterated in seconds.
As soon as you're in a corner, you're dead.
Yeah, and as soon as I remembered about Blink and I could maneuver myself, that just sort of like warps you, halfway across the map essentially. So you can get out of tricky situations, but you can only use it so much. That totally changed it for me. I was able to tactically draw people in, blink away, and shoot what can only be described as barrels that are filled up with, explode into ice or explode into fire or whatever colour they are, to take down like lots of enemies at the same time. But yeah, it's a lot deeper than what the cutesy graphics give.
Yeah. Have you got to the enemies that have elemental shields?
Yes, I have. And so the elemental shield means that you cannot use that type against that shield. But if you use another one, it takes down the shield. So again, it could be a red one, but it's got a yellow shield. So you have to use like red or whatever blue I'm just going to use, ice, to take down the shield. Then you have to quickly switch to another type. So you're taking down the actual enemy itself. And then there's an enemy type that can give them back their shields. Yeah,
and heal. And also the bosses have some pretty tough bosses in the game that have really brutal mechanics, fun mechanics, but brutal. So you can get really slowed down on the bosses too. But yeah, it's good. Carina, have you had a chance to play it yet?
Unfortunately not. I did look at some gameplay and look at, what it was like. It looks a very, very colourful and pretty game. But no, unfortunately I've been very busy, so I've not been able to get around to it. But I do want to give it a go. And yeah, if anyone is up for playing, that's what I mean. If anyone is up for giving it a go, I'll definitely be up for some co-op battles.
Sweet.
But if you want to try out this game and maybe be our co-op partners, how would you do that, Rhys? Treese the Rhys. You would definitely check our Twitter on Friday, because as always, we will be posting 2 copies of Nine Parchments to give away for free to 2 very lucky people who are chosen by the random Twitter contest. Pick a robot. But yeah, so tune in and make sure you retweet and like the post when it comes out to be in it to win it. With that note, let's find out what's been happening in the subreddit this week.
You're listening to Xbox One Party Chat Podcast. This week in the subreddit.
First story this week, I'm going to drop it in because it isn't in the notes here right here, but because I just want to see it. User Major Nelson.
Some low-key shade my way, Ross?
Yeah, that was some real low-key shade. But user Major Nelson announced that Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare is coming to backwards compatibility. Is anyone surprised at Activision doing this?
No, because it's Activision Blizzard and they're basically Satan.
I just thought here's a game, we've remastered it. Everyone wants this game in backwards compatibility. And then they announce a remaster and everyone's quite happy. Then everyone's really, really quite sad because they have to keep their original copy of Infinite Warfare or whatever it was that it came with. Mm-hmm. And then they get really sad again because the initial multiplayer map packs were then DLC for the game that you've just bought.
And they added microtransactions.
And then they go and release the original game back in backwards compatibility.
It's something that only Activision Blizzard would do. And
Xbox have to be say because they've allowed it.
Yeah, but I mean, they don't really. I mean, why would Microsoft care though? Because it's like,
yeah, I know they make money.
Yeah, exactly.
How many copies have they sold? It's on sale this week. Like, how many copies have been sold this week? But yeah, I just needed to add that in because I think it's so funny. The first comment on Twitter under this is MW2, please. It's just like,
I bet. Oh, Larry. Oh no, Black Ops for the win.
But anyway, I don't care for COD, so Rhys, give us our next story.
The next story is actually also related to ports appearing on the Xbox One, and that is that No Man's Sky is coming to the Xbox One, enhanced with all the DLC and additional DLC and 4K 60 FPS maybe. I don't know if it's 60 FPS, but at least in 4K with HDR. Holy crap. Like, this was the first ever big controversy of this generation. And it was like the premier sort of PlayStation exclusive. It was at 3 different PlayStation E3s. And now it's just out of nowhere coming to the Xbox. I don't think anyone saw this coming, right? Did you guys see this coming?
Not for the Xbox. I don't know. No. I thought it faded away, No Man's Sky, but now they're coming back. Maybe it's good. Maybe it'll do them some good coming back.
So that's it. Supposedly it's really good.
Yeah, well, see,
now,
I was rooming with Green Skull, as we discussed earlier, right? And when this happened, I'd woken up in the morning, and, you know, we sort of woke up and cuddled every morning like we always do. And I checked Twitter, and I was just like, dude, check this out. Like, No Man's Sky coming to Xbox. And he was like, oh, that's great. No Man's Sky is really good now. And I was like, what? And he told me how he's been playing it on PC, and they've apparently been adding DLC after DLC after DLC, and just working on it non-stop for the last 2 years. Like, you can build bases now, he said. You can drive vehicles on the planets, and you can fly your ship down to the ground now, and even buy freighters. Apparently, he rattled off a list of stuff you could do.
Yeah, basically, I bought this game in PS4s. As soon as it came out.
You did?
Because I fell for the hype. Yep, I did. As soon
I
as
don't
it
think
came
you
out,
ever mentioned that to us. Is that like your secret shame?
No, I think I probably did mention it. I don't know. I played the heck out of it when it first came out. I never got to the centre of the universe because I get bored before then. But, you know, the idea of the game itself is amazing. It just wasn't there. It wasn't complete,
wasn't finished,
Yeah, and it was, again, marketed as a AAA title that probably wasn't a AAA title, but kudos to the developers in the sense where, you know, they've kept on developing it. They could have just gave up. You know, at that point they could have said, oh, it's dead, we're just going to give up.
Considering the reception they got, I wouldn't have blamed them either.
No. You know, they'd be back making, I can't remember, what's the games that they made in
Joe
360?
Danger.
It was like Joe Danger.
Yeah, boy.
But yeah, I never thought it was a terrible game. I didn't think it was exactly, I didn't think it was a brilliant game. As I said, I think the concept was good. I am actually excited to play a complete version in 4K on my X after I've read the reviews of it.
Yeah, me too. No, but no, I'm really excited. I mean, you know how much I love Elite Dangerous and space games, and I was really salty that No Man's Sky wasn't coming to Xbox.
Yeah.
Really salty. And then I was about to buy it for PC when I saw the big controversy about release and sort of stepped back and was like, whew, thank God I don't pre-order. But now I am actually really excited. It just fell off my radar completely. Much like Carina says, I can't believe they've been working on it non-stop. A couple of games have really done that this gen, haven't they? Like The Division and Rainbow Six Siege. What other games have done that?
Well, actually, see, anyone that's listening to this, see if you get a chance, go back and play The Division, or pick it up for the $12 or what it is. The Division, with all its DLC, which was included in that bundle, is a really good game. Like, a really, really good game. The initial release, it didn't have that much going for it, but it's got a good endgame now, and also it's got a 4K patch coming in the next 2-3 weeks, I think. Mm-hmm. But I got the season pass. I game share with someone. We halved The Division because I do like those types of games. Also, their trailers were fantastic for The Division. I just liked the idea of it. And that is another game, as you said, that is actually worthwhile revisiting now that everything's out for it, because they've done well. They've listened to the fans and they've actually done well with it. And as you said, I hope that this is the case for No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
What was the other game you were thinking about?
Well, I said Rainbow Six Siege, obviously. That actually sold more in the second year than its launch. And also I think Halo 5 has been worked on continuously since launch as well.
Yeah.
I think there's a few more. This has been a really interesting sort of generation for comebacks.
Yeah. That's interesting.
I'm hoping for the Sea of Thieves 1 year sort of comeback thing when everyone can talk about how amazing the new stuff is.
But anyway, we didn't mention it earlier on, but we actually have an exciting interview, which I'm not in part of because I was out drinking. So take it away, Rhys.
Xbox Snap this week's interview.
All right, everyone, welcome back to this week's interview. As promised, we have a special guest today with us, Ben Hill, who is the writer and producer for Toxic Games, who are the developers of Qube 2. So, Ben, welcome to the podcast.
All right, nice to be here.
It's fantastic to have you. So, I'm just going to come out and ask, because like straight away, what does Qube stand for?
I'm not responsible for this.
Right.
The original game was made as a student project, and I believe it stands for Quick Understanding of Block Extrusion.
Quick understanding of block extrusion. Okay, I wasn't actually expecting it to stand for anything. I just noticed it had the dots in between the letters, and that's amazing. But anyway,
because that's what you do in the game, right?
Extrude blocks. That's amazing. But okay, let's get back on track. How about you start off by actually telling us a little bit about who you are and what it is exactly you do at Toxic Games, other than extrude blocks.
Sure. So, as you said, I'm the producer and writer. I also do a lot of the direction on the game as well. So generally, my kind of job role at Toxic Games is to ensure that all different areas of the game's development are cohesive. So the vision of the game is exactly what we want it to be. To ensure that we actually, as we're developing the game, we get it out on time, we get it out at the right quality that we're kind of aiming for. And as a writer, my kind of job role is to work very closely with the audio team, very closely with the art director to develop a story for the game world, and of course write the script as well.
Fantastic.
So could you tell us a little bit about the history of Toxic Games? How did you guys get started? I mean, I know you mentioned just before that Qube was a student game originally.
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah. So I joined the team for Qube 2, but I've known the fellas who founded Toxic Games for a long time. So they all went to university together in South Wales, and for their third year project, one of their third year projects, they came together as a group and they started developing this prototype. And they were inspired by this animation where there's like this room full of like white cubes, and then the cubes start moving around and doing things with a character in between. And they thought it'd be a really cool idea to maybe develop a game around moving these blocks around in some capacity. So that's how they kind of started the kind of project. And then they, through various kind of means, and I don't know the full kind of details of this, they got noticed, they developed the prototype, and they were one of the first kind of bunch of games to be awarded the Indie Fund kind of investment to develop the game. And so for people that don't know what the Indie Fund is people like Jonathan Blow and Kelly Santiago and really renowned independent developers that come together to kind of help other kind of game developers out and kind of collect that sort of stuff together. So that's kind of how that's kind of structured, and they were actually I think the first game to be released under the Indie Fund, which is awesome. And that's how Qube came to be. And Qube was released in 2011, originally for some platforms in December, PC, and then it was released for Steam in 2012.
Nice. That's pretty cool. I had no idea about that program.
Yeah. So
really
it's kind of great for students anyway. It's obviously aimed at independent developers that have really interesting game ideas, and they were just in the right place at the right time with the right kind of cool game. So, and it's worked out really well for them. And yeah.
Fantastic. So, that was obviously the history of Qube, but you guys just released, Qube 2 on the Xbox One and other platforms as well. And just for those who are unfamiliar, how about you describe the game for us in your own words?
Okay, sure. So Qube 2 is obviously the sequel to the first-person puzzle adventure game Qube. And in Qube 2, although the game is in the canon of the Qube kind of universe, it's a separate story. So for people that haven't played the first one, they can jump straight in. And you play as a stranded archaeologist called Millie, who is like mysteriously awoken in this kind of ancient alien landscape, and together with the distant help of another survivor, you have to kind of traverse and manipulate this strange structure kind of around you. So the kind of basic gist is you wake up and wearing this strange suit with these attached gloves, and you can use these gloves to interact with the world around you. And the way that you do that is you can place different colored cubes into the alien landscape, and then you can manipulate them. So blue cubes will launch you in the air, like a launch pad. Red cubes can be extruded, where the name comes from. Create platforms and pillars and a variety of other things. And then you have green cubes, which can detach from the wall. And then these kind of the green cube kind of gets played around with physics a little bit. So your goal is to then traverse this strange place, rendezvous with the other survivors, and find a way off the planet. And the puzzle solving aspect comes in by the way of how you combine these different mechanics together, and how you combine them with the different strange technologies that you'll find throughout the landscape.
So, I mean, you've just told us a bit about the story. Could you tell us what inspired the story itself, or a bit more on the female protagonist?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the story for me was inspired very much by the story that Rob Escom had written for Qube Director's Cut. So the original Qube was released without a story. It was just a room-to-room kind of puzzle game. And then they re-released it in 2014 as a Director's Cut. Rob Escom, who worked on games like Alien Isolation and other kind of titles, he came on board and wrote a story for the game, which was very much about... It's almost a bit of an allegory for video games themselves. You're kind of told what to do by this protagonist, and you just do it, and then you kind of stop questioning why you're doing things in this strange space. And so when I came on board for kind of Qube 2, they had a prototype that was really good with these new mechanics, and they knew they wanted to continue the story in some way. They didn't want it to isolate people that hadn't played the first game, because there was a bit of a gap in time. 2018 from 2014 is a significant amount of time, right? Yeah. So we started discussing what we kind of wanted, and they kind of gave me free reign as long as it could fit in with the kind of canon. And so I looked at the first game, and we started coming up with ideas, pitched a few different ideas. I was heavily inspired by things like 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I could tell.
Kind of wanted this strange alien space that felt alien. I'm quite into some aspects of abstract storytelling, so I didn't necessarily want it to be like I didn't want it to be an intrusive story, because some people didn't really like a story in puzzle games. They just like to solve the puzzles, right? So we didn't want it to be too intrusive, and secondly, we wanted it to just be alien and mysterious. We really wanted you to be a little uncomfortable in this space. There's this kind of dissonance between it should feel clean and tidy, all of these walls, and they're not. They're kind of a little bit all out of place. We wanted to feel a little organic. And so that's kind of where the kind of seed of those ideas, my own inspirations and my own kind of ideas, plus the canon of the world, and combining them together. And so we decided to set it on this alien planet after the events of Qube 1.
Yeah, I can definitely understand what you mean when you say, you wanted to make it familiar, but also create like a bit of dissonance. Like when we discussed this game previously, when it was the game of the week, our American host Clay, he was saying, the woman who starts speaking to you, the one that you mentioned before, it was like, you're saying nice things and you're telling me exactly what I should be hearing, but I don't trust you. This all feels wrong, and it really, everything. It's what's the word? I suppose maybe otherworldly or somehow wrong, but it's really good.
Yeah, and I think so when it came to write the kind of characters for this kind of game, I've been asked a few things. Did we purposefully write female characters into the title? And in all honesty, that's not really how I approach writing. So the way that those characters came about and what we wanted their roles to be. I obviously had ideas about what the character functions would be. I wanted a strong kind of character for the protagonist, but who was vulnerable. So they did feel lost in this world, but they had that inner strength that kind of made sense for the player to be doing strange things with the cubes, right? So... Because that's kind of a very difficult storytelling, a very abstract mechanic, with a story. It's kind of hard to connect them together, but so that's how we approached that. And then we wanted this other character who was overtly trustworthy, but that made you feel really cautious about them. And so, in my mind, I've worked on a variety of games. You realize as you write titles that you end up writing characters in a specific way, and I kind of am often drawn to female protagonists. I believe in diversity, and for me, I grew up in a very female oriented family, so that's I think where that kind of comes from. It's my own background, right, as a writer. And so with Millie, I wanted this really strong kind of female character, and so we kind of developed her to be, like I said, a little bit vulnerable, but this inner strength will always kind of come through and kind of prevail as you progress kind of through the game. But there's also that utter trustworthiness of her at the beginning, which kind of creates this kind of dissonance. And with Emma, we wanted her to be, which is the I guess she's the mentor, but also kind of, this kind of shapeshifter kind of character. You're not sure if she's a baddie or a goodie, right? I wanted her to be, again, quite strong, almost stoic in her kind of demeanor. So she kind of sounds like she knows what she's talking about, but there's like this emotional gap between you and her. And hopefully that kind of comes across. So
no, it definitely does. I have to say, I actually sat through the entire game in one single play session. I just smashed it in like 4.5 hours. I just couldn't pull myself away from the game because of the story. I mean, we've all played Portal, right? Portal 2 and Portal 1 they were fantastic puzzle games, but it's the humor that you play for, right? And of course the puzzles, but the humor is what sort of keeps you going. But I've never played a puzzle game before this one with a story that actually sort of pulled me through. So well done. But
thank you.
You're welcome.
It's kind of been I think like it's because of the way that it's kind of written, which was very much about this mystery and about atmosphere. I think I consider it an atmospheric story. Some people have not gelled with it and some people have really gelled with it. It's like 50-50, right? So
yeah.
It's like that. But then again, I think if you're kind of you're pleasing 50% of the people and then annoying the other 50, you're doing something right. So
yeah, it's close enough.
I don't know.
But this is actually the very first true sequel we've ever had a developer interviewed on here from. As far as I know, we've seen all kinds of spin-offs and stuff like that, but this is the first ever Qube 1 to Qube 2, or first to sequel, interview we've had. So what I want to know is, obviously there's been a huge improvement on Qube 1. The art style is just amazing, and it looks way, way different to the original, or the Qube 2, obviously. I mean, is it easier to make a sequel or harder? Like, where do you even start when you make a sequel like that almost completely rebuilds the original?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of a bit of both in different ways, right? It's easier because you have a springboard to start off. You know what your mechanics you at least know the kind of realm that your mechanics need to fit in. You know the universe that it kind of has to fit in. So you have this kind of inspirational starting point. But then you have to, when you make a new game, you think of a new audience, you think of this new audience that you're going to attract to this game. And I think with a sequel, you're thinking about bringing new audiences into the franchise, but you have to make sure that all of the existing fans of the franchise are absolutely catered for. We have to look after our community, right? So you're kind of torn between doing new and interesting, crazy stuff that you kind of want to maybe explore as a designer or a developer, whilst also making sure that it's true to that original game. And that's kind of, I think, the hardest part about developing a sequel. So with things like the graphics, we knew we wanted the graphics to be much better than the first game, and there was points where we wondered if we were taking it maybe a little bit too far, because it feels more realistic. It's not as minimal as the first game, but we were just like, what the hell? we want it to be as beautiful as possible.
You nailed it.
Our art director's incredible, Harry Core, and we wanted it to be this strange alien world, and we were using Unreal Engine 4, and we love using Unreal, and we've been using it for years, so we kind of knew what we wanted to do with it and that we could do it. So that was an easy thing. The story again is like a continuation, but it's a separate story. So we wanted to answer some questions from the first game, but also have still a lot of mystery left over at the end, so we knew where we were there. I think the hardest part was, how do we develop the game mechanics? So in the first game, when you go into a room, all the coloured blocks are in the room, so you can't place anything anywhere. You have a limited amount of buttons, so to speak, to interact with, and then you've got to rotate the rooms in different ways to try and find a solution to get the ball from point A to point B, or get the player to the door. And in this game, we wanted to give the player more control over that. So that was difficult in trying to make sure that whatever we created was, again, like true to that original vision, like original interactions of the cubes, but was also something new for existing and new kind of players.
I mean, talking about the mechanics, could you tell us a little bit about how you guys design the puzzles? I mean, some of them are very, they get harder, especially near the end of the game.
Sure. So we have a secret weapon, and
it's nice.
Our secret weapon is a guy called Dave Hall, who's a puzzling genius, and so Dave is our resident puzzle designer. He's one of the original founders of Toxic Games.
Designer.
Yeah, he's the puzzle master. So so we feel like when we play Qube, we're going into Dave's like mind, and it's a terrifying kind of abstract space. No, Dave's a great kind of puzzle designer, and so the way that Dave kind of approaches stuff is he works actually incredibly quickly with the kind of puzzles, and he. When myself and Harry were brought on board, so Harry's the art director and obviously I'm the producer and kind of, I guess, creative kind of direction. Dave had actually already built out the entire game in like a white box kind of format. So there's no art in it, but all the puzzles, lots of puzzles existed, right? So he'd been doing this whilst everybody had been working on different projects. So between Qube and Qube 2. So we didn't work on Qube 1 and then go straight into Qube kind of 2. Dan DeRocha, the managing director, worked on Hue. I worked on Hue as well, the game about colour kind of switching with Henry Hoffman, as well as other kind of projects. So it was kind of like Dave was prototyping whilst people were doing different things, and then it all kind of coalesced when we kind of all came back together, and David built all these puzzles. So our kind of process there was essentially to play through those kind of puzzles and kind of give quite hard critical feedback on what he'd created. And I think his approach generally is he thinks about, when designing an individual puzzle, like what's the player trying to do when they're in that space? Like, what is the goal? And that's the most important thing. There's a door over there. That's what we want to get to. Then you challenge their perception of that space. So you try and get to the door, and then you maybe can't get to the door in the way that you anticipated, or there's like some sort of kind of catch to that kind of problem. And then that's where the puzzle element is. It's making the player look at the space in a new kind of perspective in order to kind of interact with the cube spaces and kind of figure out kind of what the problem is. And obviously, the further and further and further into the game we go, the more mechanics we've been introducing. So therefore, the more steps there are to actually getting to that goal, the more complex the scenario is, which is where the difficulty kind of comes from. And in order to ensure that difficulty curve is good, we kind of almost make more puzzles than we need to, and then we start stripping them out, or kind of looking at maybe the ways that we're using the mechanics that people aren't connecting with through playtesting properly. So an example of this is, I think, in like one of the after the kind of tutorial area, and you get to this kind of wide open, bright kind of space in the game. There was a puzzle in there where we required the player to use dexterity to jump on a green cube at a very specific kind of moment it was bouncing. And people got really stuck at that point in the game. Not because there was anything wrong with the mechanic, it's just that we hadn't taught that mechanic kind of properly. And so that puzzle had to be reworked or removed. I can't remember. So we've got kind of a stockpile of puzzles somewhere that are all good puzzles, but they just didn't work within those kind of segments of the game. So it's very much an iterative process. We have to do a ridiculous amount of play testing for puzzle games, just because the way that I might solve a puzzle or you might solve a puzzle might be quite different, or the way that we think about that problem and trying to cater for a good amount of players can be quite tricky, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how do you judge if it's too hard? Like, what's the cutoff point? I know that's tricky, right?
Yeah, that is really tricky, because obviously the more you play a game as a developer, the more you know the puzzle answers. So
yeah,
so you suddenly, that difficulty just disappears. We try and do it logically. So the way that I like to direct is these experiences is to first build up an identity of experiential learning. So we try and introduce mechanics every sector a little bit at a time. We teach you in a very simple way a really obvious way how to use a mechanic. And then we start layering that kind of complexity in. So the kind of objective really is that when you go into a puzzle space, you know how to interact with everything, right? You know what a green cube does, you know what a fan does, what a magnet does, what a rotating wall does. But how those things fit together is the puzzle. So the players don't get frustrated with that interaction. Well, I hope they don't. They don't get frustrated in the way they interact with the space. They might get a little bit frustrated at finding out how all those things connect together. And that's where lateral thinking comes in. So that's where the kind of catch is, essentially, where you have to view the space from a new perspective. And once you see it from that new perspective, that's the eureka moment, right? Where you suddenly go, oh, it was so simple all along. Like, I can't believe it was that, and that was all the puzzle was.
The aha moment.
Yeah, the aha moment.
Or it's like the I hate myself, I can't believe I was overthinking this moment.
Yeah. We try and make you feel smart at that moment, but I think sometimes it works the other way. So.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we try and tackle difficulty anyway. It was lots of kind of play testing and lots of external play testing. So we have, I don't know if you looked at it when you get to the end of the game, you look at the credits, like our QA list was huge, because the amount of people that we had to, get to play the game just to be able to go, people like we might get a puzzle because we understand the rules, but from somebody who's never played the franchise before, will they get that puzzle, or will they get frustrated? Will that be something that ruins the experience for them, which is obviously something we want to avoid at all costs. So lots of kind of external play testing, and that isn't for like bugs or anything. We use an external company for that, but this was for, well, how do these people want to play the game? How will they tackle the puzzles?
Speaking about, knowing your own mechanics, do you or the guys on the team play any other puzzle games? Do you ever try anything else, or try and, beat each other at other puzzles?
No, I don't think we do it in a communal kind of way. We do all play puzzle games, but I used to play a lot of puzzle games. Like, I love Portal, and I really enjoy the Talos Principle. And I played those all before. It's my second puzzle game, but it's my first puzzle game working on the mechanics. With Hugh, I was just like a writer and editor. Actually, Ether 1 was a puzzle game as well, but again, I was more the narrative side of things. But we all do play puzzle games, but it ends up being kind of like work, because you're trying to figure out how other developers are putting those puzzles together, and why are they good, and are they better than our puzzles, and how can we make sure that we're the same quality, right? I think. Zelda, I guess, is a puzzle game, right? And I absolutely fell in love with Breath of the Wild and lost hundreds of hours to it.
Yes.
But it's a very different type of puzzle solving that is all about experimentation and systemic kind of gameplay. Whereas something like the Turing test, which I have played through, which I think is a great video game and has some great kind of puzzles in it. That was very much as we were developing Qube 2. We wanted to see what the quality bar was like for our kind of audience and make sure that we can match that. I don't know if we're going to play puzzle games for a little while now.
It's only first-person shooters or city builders or anything completely different.
Absolutely anything.
What are you playing right now?
I'm playing a lot of Sea of Thieves. Right now.
Good man. Us too.
Nice choice.
Yeah, I have a variety of kind of consoles, but I'm kind of really digging the Xbox Game Pass right now, and that was a really good opportunity to jump into Sea of Thieves.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing how cheap it is.
I played a lot of hours of it. I think it's kind of been my stress buster, through the launch kind of period of Qube 2 is, we work all day and making sure everything's going well. And then at night, I just pretend to be a pirate.
Amazing. I got a
way to spend your evenings.
Yeah, no, it's great. I do the same. But I have to ask, why not spheres or triangles? Like, what have you got against other shapes?
Oh, well, we do have other shapes in Qube. We have spheres in cubes. Cubes are easy to build, and also I think when the first game was made, they were easy to model as well. So.
Yes, that was definitely not a totally serious question. Yes,
that was probably the honest truth. I don't know, because you could make a game out of triangles. I guess they just would bounce around a lot.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So speaking of cubes, what actually came first in the development? Would you say it's the concept of the puzzles, or would you say it's the storyline itself?
In this case, it was the puzzles. So the puzzles very much had been designed and the mechanics had been kind of created, and there was kind of a starting point there that Dave and John had. John's the kind of technical director, and Dave's obviously the puzzle kind of design director. And they had this crashed escape pod because at the end of the first game something happens with the escape pod without spoiling it, and so you've got this crashed escape pod, and there was nothing more than that. That was like the only context that we kind of had for the entire game. And so myself and Harry kind of grew a story out of that and did have to overlay it to the puzzles and kind of make it work with that, which is challenging from a writer's perspective. There's two different ways of approaching games. As you kind of said, it's bottom up, where you design your mechanics first and iterate those and figure the programming out, and then you develop that into something that makes sense. Or kind of top down, where you come up with an amazing concept and then you try and find the mechanics within that concept.
Nice.
And so Qube 2 was bottom up because the mechanics have been designed first. And from a writer's perspective, that's the hard challenge. That's definitely the hardest way of developing a game. Because you have to think of excuses for context rather than
why can I move all these cubes around?
Exactly. So, but arguably you can get better mechanics doing it that way. So it's kind of it's always a bit of a catch-22 really. And so for us, it was hard, I think, to come up with a story that, we did have a starting point. Rob Escom kind of gave us a starting point, so that kind of really helped us to kind of think about what we could kind of do with this strange kind of space. But definitely puzzles first, and then story we had to overlay and work it into the massage it into the puzzles, I guess.
Massage it into the puzzles. I like that. So, we're talking now about puzzle mechanics and design. And earlier you mentioned that you guys scrapped a whole bunch of perfectly good puzzles that just didn't fit or that were a bit tricky or whatever. Are there any like game mechanics or puzzles that you had to get rid of that you really wish you had included?
There are quite a few. Now I think about it, it's a kind of one of those things that you've thrown away in your memory when you throw work away. But there was a few different things. We had stuff like power kind of they weren't really cubes. They were more like kind of battery things that you could pick up. You could pick objects up at one point, and kind of cart those around. More like that Talos principle, where you can pick things up.
Yeah.
So we had that in the game at some point. We had death in there at some point, but we found that we only used it in a couple of isolated scenarios, and I felt very strongly that we shouldn't have death in the game. I think there was a point where you got chased by a boulder,
like Indiana Jones style.
Yeah,
I was just
absolutely.
thinking that.
It was like the antithesis to Qubes. It was massive, massive ball.
I could see why he'd be the villain.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few other things along those lines. And some of them I kind of liked. And then we experimented. We wanted to play around with mechanics in the second half of the game, which we do in a very simple way, which I think was the smart choice. But we did originally have another mechanic that was interesting, and it was kind of a cube that didn't react to gravity, but you could kind of push it along kind of pathways and stuff. So those are kind of, I wouldn't say scrapped. I'd say that they've kind of gone back into the idea bank, and we can if we revisit Qube in the future, then we never know what you kind of have to go back and look at some of those old ideas. I think that's always a smart thing to do, but for this game they just didn't feel quite, it felt like we were maybe adding too many mechanics in, rather than allowing the core mechanics to kind of breathe. Maybe
for Qube 3, but I remember describing that basically at the end, like there's only a couple of mechanics, as you said. But at the end of the game, you're more or less building a sort of miniature Rube Goldberg machine that you sort of set in motion to make the puzzle, complete. And I think that if you had added too many more mechanics, it would have been you would have had to take notes, I think, in order to complete the puzzles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is like note-taking puzzles are cool in certain games like Myst or Obduction. Yes. When you have to really take note and stuff, that kind of works. But with a game like this, that wasn't our objective. We wanted it to feel like, like a Rube Goldberg machine, where you kind of are like doing these little things and then watching the magic happen, right? So I'm watching how everything has this kind of cause and effect, which I think is great, and that's something that we definitely aspired to kind of create, and we do have. Downloadable kind of content coming for the kind of game, and that is something that we are really interested in pushing maybe a little bit further. So
what do you say would be next for the team at Toxic Games? I mean, Qube 3, Qube 4?
Maybe I don't know at this point. We're working on like I said, downloadable content. So we have and we haven't we've announced this for Steam at the moment. We haven't announced it for consoles. It's not because it's not going to be coming. It's just that we need to figure stuff out. So essentially we have a couple of puzzle packs that we're kind of building at the moment that are quite substantial, actually. They're kind of less puzzles, but there's a higher difficulty, and we're playing around with some of the mechanics in a different way. One is a classic puzzle pack where we're kind of maybe looking back on our history a little bit. And then there's one that we haven't announced kind of what it's called or what direction we're going in yet, so I can't really say anything on that. The Season Pass is available on PC at the moment, and we're looking at opportunities for Xbox. So.
Oh, that's great! I didn't even know there was going to be DLC. That's exciting.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, we've basically reached the end of the interview, Ben, but I have one super important and super serious question. And this is a question we ask all of our guests who come on here. Okay. So, we've been fairly friendly and fairly nice, chatty for this whole interview, but now the gloves come off. So are you ready for this? Cause it's going to be nasty.
Go on then.
What classic video game character could you knock out with one punch?
Oh, that's a difficult question. Classic video game character.
It's the ultimate question.
It's the ultimate question. We've had more than 50 interviews on the podcast, I think, and we've had such wonderful answers, and I can't wait to add yours to the list.
I'm going back into my 16-bit era here.
Yeah, do it.
I'm going to say Bubsy the cat.
Bubsy. Ooh, didn't we have him recently? That. I think we had Bubsy. Was it the guys from who make Robocraft.
Right, was
Yeah,
it?
I think they said that.
Yeah, I think it was the Robocraft Infinity guys who said Bobsy. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, Bubsy the cat, because he's no Mario or Sonic, is he? So.
No, he's moving up the ranks. That's for sure. I know that the top dog is ironically the dog from Duck Hunt. He's public enemy number 1. He has the most votes.
Really?
Yeah.
I've got a backpack which is a Vans backpack. It is the Duck Hunt backpack, and I love that dog.
He ruined a lot of childhoods of developers who we've interviewed. Ben, thanks so much for joining us today. It was so nice to have you on the podcast. I hope you had fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a great time, guys. Thank you
Brilliant.
for having me on the podcast.
No,
great.
Anytime. We'd love to have you go back on for whatever you do in the future, hopefully Qube 3. And bye-bye.
So thank you, Ben, for that interview. Of course, Qube 2 is out on Xbox right now, and it was our indie game of the week a couple of weeks ago. So if you haven't had a chance, have a little look into that. But anyway, it's been a slow news week, so I think that's a good time to end the pod. But we will be back next week with hopefully some more news and some more amazing interviews. But for another week, Xbox, turn off.
You're listening to Xbox One Party Chat Podcast, the official podcast of the Xbox One subreddit.
Let's do this.
My name is Benny Hill from Toxic Games, and you're listening to... Sorry, what's the podcast?
Party Chat Podcast.
Party Chat Podcast, yeah.
So thank you, Mr. Hill, for that amazing interview. I don't know why I'm saying it like this.
I was like, wait, where are we going? What's happening?
Hello and welcome to Party... Blah, blah, blah,
Where are we ready?
blah, blah.
Welcome to the party bus.
Hello and welcome to the party. Sit down your beer. I don't know.